Um, T and I are aware that when we first came to retreat, when we first got here, and for a couple of months after being at retreat, that new information was coming very quickly, and just right on top of it. In fact, each time the group came up, there was a tape
You
to
didn't
go
see it
back,
up on the right?
sometimes two tapes to go back, and we were excited about the pace of new information. And now there's been a while when there hasn't been any to amount to anything, or in comparison. And so we started examining why. And to the best that we can examine, you remember right before we came up to retreat, we DC'd TV altogether. We started a pretty heavy meditation program, and it was just kind of a real about face in concentrating on meditation and quiet and away from what we had been doing before. Plus, there might have been something that the class was feeling when the retreat began that stimulated a lot of new information. In other words, we've told you many, many times that thirst equals, our knowledge comes in proportion to thirst. When you're thirsty for information and you do something about it, you digest it and try to put it into practice, then if your thirst continues and it's strong, new information comes. So something stimulated thirst and stimulated very accelerated growth there for a while, right after we started the retreat. We don't feel like we can blame it on the altitude, because why would it have come so strong then and then tapered off so? We don't know exactly what you were feeling when the retreat started and when we started meditation. We don't know, like in the privacy of your mind, if you were wondering or if you were feeling a little desperation for growth because Lynx was separate from you and you were going to go up to visit on a periodic basis, or you may or may not go up because that was the basis the retreat was started on. But if you can try to reflect on it a little bit, we would like to know a little bit more too what you were feeling that caused your thirst to be strong. And now in almost a typical human way, the real significance, the real desperation of growth through meditation and with the retreat and with the separation of Lynx from the main craft, you've gotten accustomed to it. And getting accustomed to it, we feel like has been the primary culprit in lack of new information. Now, and it's very human to get accustomed to things. And you shouldn't be accustomed to it. You should be able to keep it fresh. Like we know, we have, T and Do have their own mantras and meditation, and we know that we could very easily drop them, or we could do them without much significance. And we know what it feels like if we miss a meditation, or if we miss the routine that we go through in the same comparison to the routine that you have been given to go through. And speaking for myself, I know that if I miss my mantras or meditation, that I might go a day or two because other things have taken my concentration. And then once I realized that those other things have kind of resolved themselves, and I realized, oh my goodness, I didn't get my adequate meditation and mantras in for those couple of days, and getting back into them, for myself, I feel in other words, I feel even more desperate because I've missed a day or two. And I feel like my significance, the amount of potency that I put into those meditations and those mantras returns, because I want very, very eagerly to finish the class. Now, we hope that here again we're questioning: Are you comfortable? If you are, we're in trouble. Are you getting lethargic, or a little lazy, or are things getting to be old hat? All of you need to question all of those things, and I'll go through them again. Are you getting comfortable? Are you getting a little lethargic or lazy? Are things is the routine of meditation and mantras and so forth, is that getting to be old hat, so that it has lost its potency? Because something has happened to cause an almost drop-off in information. We've always felt like our information was almost directly equal to the degree of your applied thirst. Now, what we mean is applied thirst. You can be thirsty for something, but when you receive it, then we don't get any new information until you do something about it, what we have received. Either you go through an experience, you feel something, and you grow by it, and there's a change that takes place, and then you're ready for new information, and you can remain thirsty. So we had a really exceptional period of several months where information must have been applied and thirst reestablished. And now it's just gone, it's waning. We feel like part of the problem is what your vehicles experience during the so-called holiday season. That it's very hard to not let it be a distraction for you. Where the minds of all the humans are during this time, and it holds some curiosity for you, even because it makes you wonder, what is it that why are they doing this? What are they making of this season, and why? And what is the purpose? But nevertheless, all those questions that you feel every time you get to the holiday season is obviously an interruption.
Well, the thing that disturbs me, I think, the most, and that is for individuals to have the ability to be lethargic. In other words, to even take a lesson and to think that they have the time to waste being lethargic. They have the time to waste to pout over something. They have time to waste being hurt over something. They have the time to waste being moody. All of those things we don't have time for. Now, Ken Doe has been very conservative in what he's saying, but we haven't any force alone. Does that make sense? In other words, our force is almost at zero if you all are sitting there not, what's the word, stimulating or drumming up any reason for us to be
if you aren't instigating it. In other words, if your thirst isn't strong and isn't stimulated, if you aren't prodding yourselves for a while, I don't mean to interrupt you.
Well,
Go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to let you know that the older you get, the more you get the more your body grows. I'm talking about your little butterfly. The more effort you have to exert it doesn't become easier. It's just like this is, you are a firstborn. A firstborn is always more difficult than any other time. And so therefore, it's going to take an awful lot of effort on your part at this time. You don't have time to waste one moment. And if you think you do, you're mistaken. There's a certain gestation period. We have no idea what it is. We know it's coming. Each day we know it's getting closer. But we do not know how long it is. Now, do you want to sit and wait until that gestation period and take a chance on being put in the premature nursery? Or do you want to take advantage of every day, every moment, with a strong, intense thirst? Because you're the one that has to do it now. You have to be the one to stimulate the thirst. We are doing it for you tonight. We have stalled as long as we can. We do not like a stagnant state. We like progress. We like to move ahead. And we want you to like it. And any time you all get to a spot where you feel like you are stagnant, then there's something wrong. You don't blame your teachers. You blame yourself. And to get busy and stimulate yourself, even if you have to, you don't feel it, but you pretend like you're doing it until you begin to feel it. Because it's extremely important that you do this.
The thing that you can do by stimulating it the most is not to be thirsty for new information, but to be thirsty for personal growth, for your individual change and development in the right direction. In other words, what we're not talking about, I wish we had some new information. That kind of thirst is not going to get us anywhere. You'll get new information if you're concentrating on the areas that you need to work on and surfacing them so you can see them more clearly and applying more effort on them. It's your personal change and improvement and development as individuals and as a unit collectively that automatically brings new information.
Now, I'd like to ask them something. When one of the more recent tapes, I talked to you all and told you that if I was seeking a crew to do a task on a planet like Earth, I wouldn't pick any one of you. I didn't know of any of you that I would pick because I couldn't trust your children.
At this time.
At this time. Now, it doesn't mean that that's not something that would happen in the future. It's just at this time. And since we don't have a task to do anyway, there's nothing to feel badly about. But believe it or not, you could have been one that could be picked. You know what I'm saying? It isn't impossible to be one to be picked to do a task. Now, I know that that was used as a stimulus to start your generator, like we talked about, if you remember. And at the time, some of you felt something, like one individual said, I'll show you, I can do it. I'm going to prove to you that I will be ready to be one to go on a task, or something similar to that. And we hope that's the way you all responded. Now, enough time has passed where your booger could come in and start feeding you some negative business. Booger meaning your subconscious. Now, if you have allowed that booger to do that to you, then you have not kept your generator going. And it's probably just a little tiny flicker, excuse me, that is going, and therefore you have to, as an individual, get busy and restart your generator on your own. We're not going to do it for you because it will take an awful lot of effort to get it started. But you can do it, and the only way you the only way you can do that is to take everything that has been taught to you and make it so intense inside of you. I don't mean nervous. I'm not talking about that. But so intense that you want to do everything to the letter. Now, and you've got to say, I'm going to prove to T and O that I'm going to be one of the first ones picked to be on their crew whenever we get to the next level. I want that entry vote. And I want it so badly that I want to do everything so right. So there's no other thing that I can do but do everything right. But you've got to be the one to push yourself. We cannot push you. You've got to, we hope you want to. We say you got to. You don't really got to do anything. But we hope that you want to. And the only thing I can say, the only thing I can say is that you need to generate some energy and get it going very, very quickly. Now, let me ask you all something. Have you all felt your booger making you feel badly because of what T said? That you do. You haven't? Good. How about you? You got your hand up?
He's talking that your booger or your subconscious or inner mind tried to make you feel badly about the statement of no one's ready to be part of the crew.
In other words, give you sort of a, oh well, I've tried so hard and nothing I do is right, so you know, that kind of thing.
It made me mad at myself, and I feel like it was a stimulus in a good way. I mean, even today, that when you talked to me on the phone, I felt like that's the kind of thing I've got to quit doing, and I want to be on their crew, and I used it as a reminder, but not in a bad way.
What you look like? I don't know what your age is. You're determined.
Yes, maybe more determined.
But it hasn't caused you to go on the downer because you weren't ready, right? In other words,
Not
it
at all.
hasn't been used in a negative way towards you.
No.
How about you, McCullough?
I was there at that meeting, and I may be wrong, but that may be what is wrong. That particular thing didn't seem to cause me any difficulty. That may be the whole problem. That hasn't been the trouble.
Well, how did you accept it? Did you say, well, I don't care? Did you say that? If you did, then that's negative. Or did you just let it pass off in your life?
Probably that's appropriate to let it pass. Hold it. Said, well, I can see why, at least for myself.
Well, that's not bad. Do you think so?
No.
That's not bad. In other words, if you could have a reaction where if you felt nothing other than, but then you should think about it. You should have thought about it and say, well, I'm not surprised if that's what you said, you know, but I certainly want to correct the thing.
It should have been something that all of you thought a great deal about, and that thinking a great deal about should have breeded a very strong desire for accelerated improvement. That's what should have happened. Speak up a little bit.
Like almost every night, I kind of have been going over my day and I kind of found little things that I feel like I've not pushed hard enough in, or that I've kind of been laxing with, or my standards haven't been high enough. I've been trying to increase those standards, but I still feel that my increases haven't been enough. I know that that's going to stimulate me.
Well, you don't know whether it's been, you're not supposed to rate yourself, but the thought that you're doing is your desire to want to increase it. That's good.
When I heard that, you were working on mine just about 2 months ago, constantly doing everything. And I know when I do that 100%, my brain's kind of slow. I mean, it's like my brain's also then I'm keen and then I'm not keen. And it didn't surprise me when you said that we weren't keen enough, because even when I put the most effort into being in control, and when I noticed, when I was more aware that my brain wasn't working, I mean, I wasn't able yet to make my brain consciously work that way. And I felt like you had given us that lesson about 5 years ago, and I worked on it then.
Conquered it.
Yeah, I had worked on it since then. I thought it was going to do it.
It's true. If you had been doing it all this time, it would be very natural for you right now. But when it wasn't that you're not keen that I was talking about. I can't trust you. Now, you wonder what I mean by that? I mean that if we give you an instruction, we can't trust you to do it without injecting your own mind into it.
This doesn't mean that you would intentionally do anything wrong, but we can't trust that you can stay on the right track and stick to the intent of instructions.
If you all have read any of the Old Testament since we have brought the Bible out, when back in the days of Moses, when the Lord set down all these rules, He meant for them to be followed. And even Moses wasn't allowed to go into the land of milk and honey because he broke an instruction. Now you might say, well, boy, that's pretty tough, pretty strict. But what the Lord was doing was trying to build some good genes, good sunflower seeds. And it required that kind of discipline in order to be able to develop the type of ingredient that it needed at the time, that those individuals needed at the time. Now, when you get to the next level, they expect you to do everything according to procedure. They automatically assume that you have gotten rid of your own ideas about things. In other words, can you be trusted to do things to the letter? Let's take, for instance, instance that just happened recently in the crafts. In the process of doing something to the mattresses or something, they found an apple under an individual pillow. Well, I don't know of any procedure we have for putting apples into pillows, and or candy under pillows. Now, what happened there that made that individual think that it was okay to do that? See, this is what goes through my mind.
This is trust. This is, it doesn't mean that, it means that something was injected to think it was okay.
Now, it doesn't sound like very much. It isn't very much. I mean, the
It's
world
very
is going to
serious.
come to an end. But that individual cannot be trusted. Cannot be trusted to follow procedure.
Do you all know of any procedure we've given you to put things under your pillow?
It's
apples and
it's a deceitfulness in a way, because it's hiding something.
Or
And-
storing.
Or storing something, and we hope that we don't have to resort to that. But that's another time. That's incident is the second thing.
The squirrel influence.
Yeah, to find out if keep the food out all the time.
Oh, yes. We wanted to ask you, does the fruit go out only certain times? It stays out all the time? Then why would anybody have a reason to take it and then put it someplace else?
Now, see, this is something that, and now we're using that as an example. You all might do something like that in a different way. You know, you might take a blouse or a shirt out of the closet and put it aside on your stack, or put it someplace so it'll be sure to be ready for you the next day, instead of taking a chance.
So no one else will notice it, and it'll be there for you.
I mean, if you're doing that, that's just as bad, right? And hopefully you're not, but...
You might have hit just a sore spot.
You see all those brains go quickly. In other words, it's these little things that I was talking about when I said that. And we give you a task, and you follow to the letter. If you all remember back in the Old Testament also, where this one individual, remember we gave it on a tape, where this one individual the Lord wanted to test him to make him king of Israel, and he gave him a task to do. He said to go and take that particular town, kill everybody, and don't take anything out of it. Kill all the animals and sheep and everything, and don't take anything for themselves. And one individual said to this person that would be so-called king, why don't we take the best sheep out of the crop and the best of everything and take it back?
And they probably even said, I'm sure the Lord really meant for us to get rid of the ones that were puny and poor. And probably the Lord meant for us to save the better, you know, even though that wasn't instruction given. But that's how they changed.
And then when he got back, the Lord said, I told you not to do that. And therefore you came to be king.
Because how many times have we called you and said, why are you doing this? And you say, oh, well, I thought that such and such an instruction meant this. In other words, you would take an instruction and out of it apply it to something else that you thought was a parallel application. And then it was wrong. And we would call you and say, that wasn't the instruction. And yet, and you didn't intend to go astray, but you have not yet learned how to not enlarge upon, or not to try to apply it someplace else, or over a period of time, frequently, instructions change 180 degrees from what they were when they were given.
In other words, we don't want an older member to say to you, little child, you've got to go back to school. You can't participate in any of our classes. We don't want them to say that to you. I mean, you can't participate right now. We want you to build such a good body, such a good computer, that when you get out of here, you can step in functioning as a member of the next level and be of service to the next level. We don't want to fail our task. We don't want you to fail your task. Just making it to the next level isn't sufficient. If you all could just realize how important your class is at this time, because the sky's the limit for you. You can be anything you want in the next level if you do this right. In other words, they are watching you. They are seeing how you're building your body. They know automatically what departments you can go into, what you all can do. Do you all want to be just somebody, just an average member at the next level, or do you want to be somebody in, let's say, the executive suite of the next level? Our personally don't want to just be an average so-and-so. I want to be head of everything. And we want you all to be head of everything. But the only way you can be that way is for you to build a good body, because this is the time you are being groomed for your future. It is the way your life is going to be after you get out of here. And it isn't the way that you do it your way. It's the way you do it the next level. You can do anything your way.
And don't forget, when T says build your next level body, she's talking about the fact that your next level body is built by the amount of next level mind that is clearly defined upon procedures and instructions that you have saturated that body with. That's what builds that next level body, right? Do you not understand that in bringing that next level mind into your consciousness and having it saturated with dependable next level ways, that is the substance of that next level body?
And if you take what we give you and you are exposed to humans and you listen to what they tell you, and you choose to take what the humans tell you over what your teachers tell you, then you're not building a good next level mind or body. I like to look at it as a computer, because I feel like you're programming your computer right now with the proper information, which is, in a sense, it doesn't discount what you're building, but if you use the computer as an example, it in my mind it seems to work better. In other words, every task that you do, whether you're telling your feet, like you all get, like we got some notes from some individuals from the main craft where did teaming tell your arm to move and all that. Believe it or not, you can do all that with one part of your brain. You have a left hand and you have a right hand. You can decide whichever side you want to put it on. It doesn't really matter. If you're right-handed, let's put it on your left side, because you don't use your left very much, and that'll kind of balance it out. But you can consciously move on part of your body. Part of your brain, and the other part can become just as alert. In other words, right now I'm consciously doing that. I'm consciously moving my hand, and I'm consciously moving my right hand, and I'm consciously moving myself to look at different individuals. And yet I can still carry on the conversation. However, I don't know how coordinated or how rational it is and everything, but I think it's just as good as it ever is. But the most important thing is that you can do it without actually bringing it so much to the surface that it interferes with your keenness. And it's very simple to do. It isn't something that we want you to make a big to-do about. But we do want you to, the only reason we gave that to you was because we wanted you to consciously remember who you are. And that you are, every time you do that, you are putting effort into that computer or putting knowledge into the computer. Eventually, it will happen as automatically as your mantras happen to you. Like sometimes if you said your mantras enough, sometimes they go on without you even consciously thinking about it. And it's kind of fun trying to have 3 or 4 things going on in your brain at one time. Once you get it all mastered, so to speak.
As long as it doesn't cause you a collision that you...
Right, you don't do it when you're driving a car. But,
you know, what T's saying about thinking of it as a computer, we've said that your inner mind, your vehicle, has its computer, right? And it plays your genetic structure plays back all the tapes that what it has experienced in this lifetime, plus all of its feelings that the vehicle has inherited. So what you're doing with your next level mind and building your next level body is you're replacing all those tapes, and every time they try to speak, you're overriding. It's like you've moved in another memory bank into your computer. And you're saying, no, I'm only going to take information from this new memory bank that I'm constantly building. And that old memory bank that keeps trying to play the tapes in response to all of the questions that might arise, I'm applying the same amount of effort to quiet those as I am to add to the new memory bank. And in the process, you're shedding the humanness and building the next level vehicle. Do you follow that? It's a real change that's taking place because the whole circuitry is being, you're pulling plugs out of certain circuits and plugging them into other circuits, even though you have to do it repeatedly. But you can imagine what even chemical changes take place in a vehicle when you're spending all of your energy doing that.
What you can do is, before you do something, think, prior to doing it, do I have a procedure for doing it? If the individual who put the apple under the pillow thought before doing it, he would not have done it, right?
If he had thought in terms of, do I have a procedure to do this, rather than think in terms of, where can I put this one?
Let's talk about playing old tapes. In other words, you've got to stop the old tapes from playing. And this season is...
Human thoughts.
Right.
Vehicular thoughts.
Right. Of the human world, or old tapes that have caused you trouble. In other words, if you have allowed a single thought to come in, or you spend any time at all thinking about the past during this time, then we hope that you have quickly stopped it and taken advantage of this time period, because we couldn't possibly create a better circumstance for you to be tested in, right? We couldn't make it worse for you than this time of the season with all this spooky stuff that's going on, and all this Christmassy stuff, and, well, you all know what it's like. Now, if you all can withstand that kind of treatment without reverting to old tapes, then you've gained an awful lot. You've gained an awful lot. And this is how we want you to look at everything that comes your way. It's a test. If somebody writes you a note like what happened at Rhodey's work about astrology and needing help, that's a test. Because your first impulse is to help somebody, right? And the next step is to stop it. In other words, you want to figure out how to handle it without anything.
You also mentioned that that would have been a good time to bring that topic up to the class for the help wanted meeting. What to do with this situation. And you've got to trust your classmates. You've got to know that they are not your classmates. They are instruments of next level ways. And they're probably on their best behavior at help wanted meetings or slippage meetings at any time, as far as being able to keep procedures at their mind. In other words, they're a lot better helping others than they are helping themselves frequently with problems. And even though we wish they would work on themselves as hard as they work on others. But that would have been a good chance to bring up that question that happened at Rhodey's and Melodi's task at a help wanted meeting, and say to your classmates, what do we do here? You've got to trust them, because you're not trusting humans. You're trusting students of the next level who are sitting there trying to come up with next level answers. And where in the world could you get better answers? And you've got to trust them on any time that We don't like you all thinking in terms of help-voted meetings have been DC'd. We don't know where in the world that came in, just because there seem to be less and less of them, and slippage meetings more and more.
The only thing we DC'd were you all writing notes of things that happened the past year to link.
Yes.
That's the only thing we DC'd, and you don't bring it out to the classmates, because that never was the instruction.
Once we felt like everyone had gone through the past year and had exposed all those things and had done that little task, then it was over. But we certainly didn't DC help wanted meetings.
Now, something just came into my mind that you're noting mentioned about, we gave this to you about moving your hands 5 years ago. You've had all these lessons just about from the very beginning, and if you all had really taken them and learned them, then, of course, that's spilt. We don't cry over spilt, but it's the example that I want to make. If you all had taken those lessons that we gave you, we gave them to you just as strongly as we are giving these to you today. If you had done them, just think where you would be today.
Even though you
Yeah.
couldn't see them as clearly then as you
Right.
see them today.
Now, what about the lessons you're getting today? What you going to do with them? Or 5 years from now, you're going to say, I wish you gave those to us 5 years ago. I hope we're not here.
No.
In other words, you don't want to let this opportunity pass you by. Learn from the mistakes that you make. No matter how hard we tried to make you see the importance of them, we couldn't. And we're trying just as hard to make you see the importance of these lessons. So don't let them pass you by. Because you've matured enough. You have more mind in I hope you're bigger than you were then. I don't mean this way, but I mean in your computer has more knowledge in it. It's just a matter of you're taking your finger and pushing the button to make the knowledge come in. But you do it before you act, not after. You don't say, oh yes, I knew that, but...
That's a real good point, because a lot of you have gotten to be pretty good at when you make a mistake, then going to your computer, typing in what was wrong with that, and coming up with the right answer. Instead of going to the computer before you acted and say, how should I act upon this, and having that same right answer come.
Now, we're not saying you're doing bad, so don't interpret it in that way. We're just trying to get your, somehow or another, you're almost bored.
That's true. That's the feeling we feel.
It's the feeling of boredom. And if I had as many tapes that you all have, and you know that you have, if you've listened to a tape more than once, you know that you learned something the second time you heard it. So what about the third and fourth time? Just think how much more you would know. And it doesn't hurt to get it, to put it into your computer to make sure that it is there.
You're not 30.
You know it so well that you have all the answers. Repetition is one of the best teachers. I don't know. Anyway, it's supposed to be a good teacher, repetition, right? Because we have gone over the same thing over and over, and evidently that's a good way they think that you can teach. Well, now, why don't you all take it and use repetition? Take it and go over it and over it and over it in your mind until you know it.
And go over it and over it before you act, instead of after making a mistake and then realizing you didn't do the homework on that subject.
Think before you act.
Go type in the question and get the readout before you act.
Any of you who've worked with computers know you can't get the answer before you put the question in, right? I even know that. And so therefore, how can you function as a member of the next level unless you put the year in motion? This is what we want you to do. you can't help but attract good things to you when you do it. And it's so simple. When you do something in a hurry, you're using your human mind. When you think before you do something, now how should we handle this? How should I do this if you're doing something in your own personal thinking? When I'm brushing my teeth, I want to make sure that I get my teeth clean. And I'm keeping my mind on brushing my teeth. I don't know if you all do this, but sometimes I've gone through brushing my teeth and didn't even remember brushing my teeth because my mind was on something. And then I had to just be on my teeth to see if I'd brushed them, or my toothbrush to see if it was there. And I don't I was doing, even though I had my mind on something else.
Can do both.
That doesn't. If I forget what I'm doing, then that means I'm not functioning right. And that's why you should always know what you're doing. When you make cereal and you forget to put salt in,
your actions aren't trustworthy if you're so on something else in your thoughts that you don't have part of your mind on what you're doing.
First thing you should do, now that we're on the cereal subject, put the water in and then pour the salt in immediately. Step 1, water. Step 2, salt. Turn the heat up. That's all there was. Y'all have any questions?
Earlier, I kind of had it on my mind, is there an updated information about booger?
No. That's correct, because I thought I would have to. And because it didn't really need correcting. When T said your booger, your subconscious, she wasn't meaning that the only booger you have is your subconscious. She meant that your subconscious is a booger to you. And she was talking about the booger, the subconscious. She wasn't talking about the boogers who are alien and assistants of Lucifer.
Because your subconscious can give you more trouble, or give you as much trouble. I'm afraid to say anything like that. But it can give you just as much trouble.
Well, it's like a booger to you because it's detrimental to you. It's in your way. It's always trying to feed you an argument. It's trying to justify things. It's trying to see things the way your genetic structure had been programmed to see things. And so, in a sense, it's a very real booger to you, but that certainly doesn't mean it's the only booger you have. I was hoping that you all would see that. I started to correct it, and I said, no, I don't need to correct that. You surely know what you mean. Is that right? Yes, that's right. Did you have a question?
I just wondered if there's something that I'm missing or I'm not doing right, because I'm aware, like, I try to keep, even during the day, I think, examine my efforts.
That's good.
I realize already that I have not done enough. And 2 hours later, it's like, I'm still at the same place I was 3 hours ago or whatever. And it's been kind of bothering me that I just couldn't, didn't seem to be making progress, even though I kept being aware of it. And I'm just wondering if there's something that I'm missing, or I can't, or is it just having to program in it?
The only answer I know to that is to give an example like T and I were talking about how different we are from, that we were even from many humans, like even when we were, before we awakened at all, like when we were in school and there was homework to be done. Like in college and they assign homework for the next day and so much has to be done, we would always rush to do it. Like I would even skip my lunch and run to the library and do my homework because I wanted to have the evening to play in or to do whatever might come up that I might want to do. And the other people, when the evening would come and they would start in on their homework, they had thought all day long about how they had all this homework to do. And after dinner, they would start on their homework for the next day. And my homework was gone by that time. And I felt like I'd totally failed if dinner time came and I hadn't snuck in the time to do the homework for the next day. And T was the same way. And in other words, what I'm saying is application. You've got, when you're reminded of your effort, and then am I really applying the effort here? Then you start figuring out, well, now how are the ways that I can apply that effort? What am I talking about? You know, what is the particular that I'm talking about? Where do I need to apply this effort? And then the next time that instance comes, or that circumstance comes that I'm talking about that needs more effort, I'm going to be ahead of the game and apply it as it appears, so that I'm not later saying, well, have I done my homework? You know, have I applied that effort? You've got to jump right in, right then, and start applying the effort. Or, if there's no opportunity to apply the particular type of effort because the circumstance doesn't happen to be available to apply that particular kind of effort, then you keep it in your conscious mind waiting for that circumstance to arise so you can apply that effort. You can't think about it afterward. It's too late.
But in a sense, what you're doing is very right. Even if you
question it.
But the thing of it is, how do you know that you haven't grown?
Yes, you may be misjudging yourself.
Right.
You may be, because usually when you question the effort, you start applying the effort. It's almost a step that comes by questioning it. It's a possibility that you're worrying about it, like homework. You know, like people worry about homework but don't get around to it. And if that is, then you've got to correct it. But usually when you start thinking about it, reminding yourself about the effort, usually the application of the effort is put into effect, and you don't want to come back later and just automatically put yourself down. Sometimes you'll be able to look back and say, I did do that better. I did apply more effort. And that's not patting yourself on the back. It's just recognizing the fact that you've done some homework. The papers are there.
But I think it's good that you're thinking it.
Yes.
So you're developing the right way to think. And then, but the thing, thinking that way will not make it happen. You have to also apply. In other words, you've got to strive to do it right, to make, have a better hour or 3 hours or whatever it is. In other words, any opportunity that comes your way to learn to do something, like suppose Links gave you a task, or somebody in the crew here came and asked you something and you had a bad response, then you would feel like you didn't grow very much, but you could grow from the experience. In other words, even though you may not have performed the way that you felt was more right, you could go over the circumstance in your mind, put it into your computer, that the next time something like that comes up, you will know how to handle it.
And that's part of growth.
That's growth. Anything that comes your way, even at your task, out of craft task, anything can be a task for you.
I really don't believe you when you say, and you'd come back later and say that you haven't done any better. I really don't believe you. I think that you probably have done better.
I think you're a little hard on yourself.
And you might be a little hard on yourself, or not examining the areas that, because of being conscious about effort, that you applied it.
If you could develop a desire to know how to handle every circumstance, and then before you act, think it out. Don't do anything impulsively. Don't do anything fast. You know, don't let anybody influence you that you've got to do this in a hurry. Which sometimes I think when you're preparing an experiment, you feel like the time is getting close. We've got to get this, especially links, because if we don't have it on time, they're going to call us and ask us why we're doing it. And you have a simple instruction. And that is, if you're running late, call me, right? if you are running late in an experiment at the main craft, you don't have to let anybody know it. You just don't have to dread it, that's all. But in other words, they know to go to consume whenever it's ready, right? That's the procedure. But you have you've agreed upon a time, and you strive for that time because everybody has planned their strategy with that time. So therefore, you try to do it. But if you can't, you don't break a procedure in order to get it out. Let's say you work real hard, you find that you're running late, and your experiment is a few minutes late. Well, then after you serve it late, you don't just forget about it. You try to figure out what caused it to be late, so that the next time you might not have that same thing happen. If the stove broke down, or the spaghetti didn't cook like it's supposed to,
or the lab crew was late showing up, or they didn't work fast enough after they got there.
Or whatever it is, you all discuss it. Figure out what you did wrong so that next time you will make up that couple of minutes and have it ready on.
This is why we said that kind of talk in the lab about your task is okay kind of talk. Because that's getting back on the track. That's just concerned with your task.
Did y'all hear that? I said, whisper. But this is how you do it. You would not break a procedure just to get an experiment out on time.
About the task at hand, or sometimes I like reading through their task around. And I just
But that's good, because when you said the fact that you're concerned about it, and as others are concerned about it, they're going to start weeding out, and they're going to start cutting off the conversation if they recognize that it's getting a little astray from the necessity of getting that task properly accomplished. In other words, we can't just apply that and say, well, since we're talking about the task, if it's not necessary, let's say a satellite tree task, and it's something that can be done at talk time, then I'm out of place. If it's something that can't be done at talk time because it needs to be handled sooner for some reason, because Link said to go and do such and such or some other reason, then it's necessary. But to constantly be examining, is this necessary and is this excessive, that's going to keep you on the right track.
We don't want you to, remember we've gone without talking before. Remember that? We cut it out altogether. And then we got back into it, and we got to where there was no restraint to our speech. Y'all remember that? Now, this is another lesson where moving your hands, let's don't funk this one in getting into talking. First, talking real loudly, where you pollute the air with your loud voice. Second, you talk only when it's necessary. When you're in the lab, even, you don't talk just to be talking. You only talk when it's necessary, when you can't function without talking.
And driving in the vehicles.
In vehicles, you don't talk in the lab,
other than the instruction we have given to the pilot.
None of those procedures have been broken. You don't sit down and just carry on a conversation with somebody. You do talk in any kind of lab work if you need to. The only thing we eliminated was note writing. Right? In other words, what you would put down on notes, you would say verbally.
Right. What you had to put down on notes in those tasks, you would now say in a whisper.
So that's all we've done. So that means there shouldn't be too much talking.
That is, unless you were putting things down on notes that shouldn't have been put down.
But learn restraint in this way, and try not to abuse it and slip back into where we were before, because it's like television. We don't want you to. We don't care if you never watch news again. The only reason we started up again was because so much was happening that we didn't know anything about.
Plus, we
But-
wanted to be abreast of the weather conditions.
Right. And what was happening in the world, so to speak. And, but you don't have to watch it. You don't change your schedule around just so you can watch TV. And that was one of the things. We thought we gave the instruction to watch TV once a day. I believe that went back where you watch local news and
In other words, not at two
network
separate times. to us.
and now we found out just recently that you all were watching it at noon and also in the evening, which see how you can slip into.
Like there was local news at one time of day and network news at another time of day, instead of finding the spot of the day when one follows the other.
And we
Because
don't
even
want-
if there are only 2 or 3 people there, in other words, you find the time that the most people could watch it, that you could watch both at one time. But even if if there's one person there, if there was any catastrophe, he would know about it. If there was anything that he had to do to get you out of the house because the tornado was blocked down the street, then he would know about it. Can't have you? Maybe we could have the crew up here give us the list, and maybe you all could help them tonight after the meeting, of all the various things, and let us re-examine if there's some that, because you might see there might be too many in your mind to give the strength to certain things that needs to be given. But I know we've given the instruction to, in general, work on the areas that you need to work on the most, and that they would have priority. Like we have said, like when you're meditating, if you can't successfully meditate more than X number of minutes, then you immediately go to the areas that are needed the most. Because if you stopped your meditation because either something interrupted it, or you had to, or your concentration was poor, we said don't sit there when your concentration is poor and be threatened with sleepiness or just lethargy and pretend to be meditating. That's the reason we said let your priorities of meditation be on the things that you need the most from the things we have given you. You understand that? And only you can really determine that.
You all know how many times a day can you meditate?
For me, I can only meditate 3 times.
But you're not limited to 3 times, right?
Oh, I'm sorry.
You can meditate as many times you can
Oh, yes.
meditate all the time that you're not doing other things, right? What if you feel bored sometimes? What would you do? No, I don't mean during meditation, but I mean, suppose you had nothing to do. Well, let's use retreat, for instance. Would you take every opportunity that you have free time to meditate, or do you feel like, let's say you felt a little bored, like there wasn't enough to do here. I'm not saying that you are, I'm just making it up. Would you take that opportunity that if you were feeling bored to meditate? Or would you just settle for boredom?
For a while and think, well, I'll meditate after a while.
It's always better to
Right.
meditate when it's more difficult.
That's right, because the effort that it takes to do a good job of it when your vehicle doesn't want to cooperate, that's very good
When you're drowsy,
result.
like Bill said, it's foolish to meditate when you're sleeping. But you
Unless,
can take it
now
as
that-
a challenge.
yes, now, that's only if you find you're not succeeding.
Right.
That's not a time to say, well, I'm not going to meditate because I'm sleepy. If I'm sleepy, that's a good time to go meditate and prove to myself that I can get wide awake and have a vital meditation.
When,
But if I'm not succeeding, then you're making a mockery of your meditation.
right, if you're going
Do you follow the difference? That's right.
if you're not conquering it. Now, when we first began to awaken, we didn't know what easy was. Everything that we had to do was the most difficult way to do it. And it got to where we automatically looked for the more difficult way instead of the easiest way.
We just expected it.
We just expected it. And we knew that we were getting some benefit from it every time we did it. And you all should take any problem that you have and make it a good and make it a positive. Anytime T and Do come down on you on something, not come down on you, but I mean give you a lot of lessons, then you should take it and honestly be thankful for it. And say, I know myself just recently what I had to go through. I had to say to the person who gives me my knowledge and my help, thank you for all this that you are suffering, all the suffering that I'm going through at this time. Thank you for it. And I admit it. And I knew that as soon as I could push through it and get beyond it, I would have some growth. I would be building a body, building something, so one day I can push off the shell that I've been carrying around for so long and be out of here. But it's only because of that each one of you as an individual, you have to do it on your own. We cannot do it for you. We can spur you on. We can give you all this information, and you can take it and do with it whatever you want to with it. But we don't want you necessarily looking for the most difficult way of doing things. But if something difficult does come to you, then look at it as something that you need to push through with all the force that you have, and just think what growth you will have.
Don't wait till it's easier.
No. It's by now all of you should have conquered sleepiness in meditation. Now we can understand if you're really tired, you've been out with your task, and you've been working, and you come in and try to meditate. We know it's difficult, but just think of how much growth you can get when you don't fall asleep.
The effort that it takes to shut off those vibrations, say, of some of your out-of-craft tasks, when the vibrations seem to be so foreign to next-level vibrations, and the effort that it takes to, as quickly as you can, get yourself in a good next-level frame of mind and do your meditation. That should make you feel really good when you've learned to do that fairly quickly and to make that change. And you shouldn't do it. You shouldn't be willing to do it slowly. You shouldn't think, well, it just takes me so many minutes or hours to get back in the proper frame of mind. It is something that can happen very, very quickly.
Take a couple of hours once you get home from your task. Take a couple of hours to get to bed.
By the time you get in let's say that you're picked up at your out-of-craft task, by the time you get a couple blocks down the street, you should be back in the proper frame of mind.
And if you're
Before you reach the craft.
Believe it or not, you can sit very quietly and relax your vehicle on the way back from the craft. Back from your task to the craft.
This doesn't mean you shouldn't stay in the proper frame of mind at your out-of-craft task. I'm talking about switching the surrounding vibrations. You should try to remain in as much of the controlled consciousness at your out-of-craft task as you can without standing out like a sore thumb. But even when you stay in the right place mentally and consciously, you're still constantly having to fight off vibrations of noise and other people's comments and the things that happen at out-of-craft tasks, right? Even though maybe your mind is in the right frame of mind. But I can't think of any place that you could have an out-of-craft task where there wasn't some environment that you were having to ward off. If it isn't so, then something's wrong, because it means that that the environment out there is as good as the environment in your craft. So, but you should make that transition quickly, and the exertion of the effort should be very rewarding to you.
Now, the next level felt like you needed this lesson again, and that's why we gave to it. Doesn't mean that it applies to all of you. Just if the shoe fits, wear it, but take it as though you do need it. And hopefully the next time we sit with you all, we will have new information. Now, we will have new information if you will take this information and do something with it, 100%. So, if we don't want you to feel badly because we had to go over the lesson again, because this isn't the first time it's happened, but we want it to be the last time, if it's all possible. That's how much effort we really want you to exert. The last time we go through this, the last time we feed you energy of the stimulus, we want you to stimulate yourself.
Prod yourself.
Prod yourself. Put the intensity behind it. Don't make us have to do it for you. Not that you made it, but I mean, next level made it. But we didn't mind doing it, but we do know that if we don't have to do it again, then we will have new information. And that's all we really live for, because who knows? The next information may be,
Step here.
We always hope for that anyway.